Alrighty, you guys, I'm going to show you how to detail a expensive set of wheels here. These are Rotiforms. They're a super nice set of wheels that Tyler has on this Volkswagen GTI. He's going to be taking it to a show this Saturday, so we want to dial it in perfect for him. I'm going to show you guys how we're going to get rid of all of this brake dust that's been building up. He hasn't had this properly detailed throughout winter, and now it is already June. So you guys can imagine that there's a ton of brake dust that has been settled into the paint here and that we're going to have to remove. And the only way to do that at this point, we foamed the car, we rinsed these wheels. So what we see here is actually not anything loose. There's a little bit here that you can rub off with your finger. Obviously, you don't want to do that. You want to properly remove it with the wheel cleaner so you're not scratching anything in the process. So what we're going to do here is let it sit with the wheel cleaner. We're going to scrub the tire. We're going to scrub the barrels. We're going to get in all the crevices with a brush. We're going to go over some areas with a mitt that we feel is necessary to do that with, and then scrub the fender well as well. And then after that wheel cleaning is done, to remove the top layer of brake dust, we're actually going to go through with an iron remover, because the iron remover, your brakes and your rotors are made of iron most of the time, or a composite of that. So when that gets released, and it's extremely hot by the way, it gets shoved directly into the paint, and then when it does that, iron begins to rust. So around that area it begins to rust, and that's what corrodes the paint in your wheels quicker than the rest of your vehicle. That's also why the paint on wheels is usually a little bit thicker and stronger than the paint on the rest of the vehicle. It can withstand the more heat, and it's a little bit more durable to be able to withstand the brake dust that's constantly being abused by. And so what we're going to do here is we've already rinsed it off, so we're just going to cover this whole thing in our non-acid wheel cleaner. I do not suggest using acid. Majority of the time it's completely unnecessary. There are some cases where you do need to use it, but most of the time it's really overused product, I'd have to say. So we're going to cover everything thoroughly with this, including the fender liner. This works really well on all of this, so just letting that dwell. I like to start with the tires, so I'm going to scrub the tires really well here. You can see all of that coming up. Let's get you guys a better shot. I've got my large easy detail brush. This is the best brush I've found so far. That's the longest. The only problem I have with it is losing the tips, the little rubber tips on them. But I've heard you can buy them somewhere. I haven't done that myself yet. Instead, I just keep buying new brushes. You guys can see all of this brake dust that's been built up. It's coming off with the wheel cleaner, obviously, in the brush, agitating it. Can't wait for you guys to see what it looks like after this. There's actually still going to be some brake dust left behind, believe it or not. We're hoping for full removal, right, with wheel cleaning like this, but it just doesn't work that way. And that's why hiring a professional detailer is necessary sometimes, unless you know exactly what to do in these situations, or you're watching a video like this and you can watch it step by step and go through the steps to make sure it's done properly on your own vehicle. I'm gonna get around the lug nuts here with this guy. I don't know if you can tell, but each one of these holes is caked in brake dust, and we are removing majority of it here. Obviously we could take the wheels off in a lot of cases, but in this case it's not part of this detail package that we're doing here. But we can still get a great job taken care of without having to remove the wheels in this case. One last thing here. Alright, I'll give you guys a closer look here. You guys can tell there's still a little bit of brake dust on the edges of these spokes here. On the insides, these little holes, just a little bit of brake dust. So to get that remaining residue off, see behind right there on the edge of the lip. So we need to get the rest of that off. We need to perfect this wheel. To do that, we're going to use an iron remover. We're going to let it dwell for a couple minutes while we start working on that other wheel. And then when we're done working on that other wheel, we're going to come back to this one after the iron remover dwelled. We're going to agitate it a little bit more with a couple brushes, or just one brush, depending on what areas we need to work on. And then we're going to rinse that off, and that should remove the rest of that brake dust there. So I'll go ahead and show you guys how the iron remover works here. It actually shows you when it activates and when the iron is being removed from the wheel. Once it starts to activate it by hitting the iron, you guys can see the rotor turning purple. That's what's going to happen to the brake dust, because the rotor is essentially the iron that we're pulling out of the wheel. So you're going to see it turn purple, turn red. And you guys can tell it's been putting in work, definitely. Unfortunately, it's a little hotter than I would like today, so I can't let it dwell as long as I would want to normally to fully remove the iron. But it is what it is. I've got a lot out. I think you guys already can tell for how purple it is that it got a lot out. Let's give it a rinse and see how she looks, right? You guys can tell that there's some etching actually in his wheels. That's from where the brake dust was sitting. You guys can see the spots where the brake dust got pulled out of. The little spots right there. So what I would suggest is polishing those areas to bring it back. But that's how you properly detail and remove all the brake dust out of here. This is prepping the wheel properly for polishing and coating right here. It'd be good for you to know that the iron remover you ideally do not want to be using in direct sunlight.